Welcome everybody to the Scale Up Show. This is Ryan Staley, your host, and I have a very special guest with me on today. I have MJ Patton. MJ is the driving force behind Alveo. She's battery starter, the engine, all rolled into one, and I messed that up as well. But you'll get it. That's all right. We're gonna roll with it here. So MJ has created and led marketing teams for Fortune 500 tech companies, has developed successful go-to-market strategies for software, hardware, and services organizations. Most recently, she was at Tech Data and Insight, where she was the head of the global marketing for a global services organization. MJ, happy to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't boot me after I messed up your intro like 5 times. So anyways, why don't you give your background, your superhero origin story on how what kind of ignited the spark for the whole marketing bug you have, and then kind of how you got to this point to where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to take you back, a decade or longer, where I first started my career. And I took actually a biz dev role. I wanted to be in marketing, but it's what I got at the time. It was right after the recession. And when I came into that organization, they didn't have a marketing department. It was a complete mess, and I was like, I'm going to take it upon myself to build a marketing department. And I got, executive support and so forth. And then one day, I get an email, and I'm the kind of person who actually reads through the entire thread of an email. I don't know if you're that kind of person, but I like.
No, not at all. Complete opposite. I just look for the high notes. You know what I mean? This is me. Complete opposite. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I read through the entire thing. So I'm scrolling down. This is a long email, and I get to the bottom, and there's my CEO, and she wrote, "MJ should just stick to your job." And I'm reading this, and I'm like, I get all flushed, right? Because I'm like, what the fuck? And I run to the bathroom, and I just start bawling. Okay, so here I am, bawling my eyes out, not knowing what I should do. Like, do I go back and just be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna develop quotes and it is what it is, or was I going to take that moment and really become a change maker? And that was a pivotal moment in my career. And I think everyone goes through those type of pivotal moments where you can make a decision of like, do you back down or do you continue on? And for me, that was the moment where I said, you know what? I really believe in this. I know this is better for the company as a whole. And I decided I was going to push through. And it was a ton of work. But by the time that I left that organization, we had a 5-person marketing department. We completely rebranded. I redid their website. I was working on their platform, and we were optimizing the customer experience. And this is before like SaaS was like a thing. And, I've done that ever since then. Every role that I have taken, it has been to be a change maker, to build something that people didn't think was going to happen. And and I love doing it. And that's why I have my firm, because that's what I help other companies do.
Awesome. So, and I mean, everybody has those pivotal moments where you kind of get punched in the face or slapped in the face or whatever you want to call it. And it has you take a hard look at what you're going to do. And you either go, you either take the blue pill or the red pill, right? Not that we're taking drugs on here on the Scale Up Show or anything like that. We're not Joe Rogan smoking a fatty with Elon Musk. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, that's awesome that you decided like, hey, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and just make it happen. So let's talk a little bit more, because it sounds like you've gotten scrappy and had to create things from the ground up, which I absolutely love, because that's the same way that I approach things. So, I know one of the things you do is look at companies by stages in terms of their maturity, and then what to focus on marketing wise and sometimes revenue wise as well, based on the stage. So could you walk us through kind of those different stages and, just like the view or the mental model that you take when you're walking through that mentally?
Sure. So we have a go-to-market maturity model that we apply to all of our clients and to our prospects. And I actually apply my own business to this as well, so that way we can make sure that we're continuously, maturing over time. It starts out with the opportunistic stage, and a lot of business owners, they know what this feels like. This is where usually the business owner is the one creating all of the deals. They don't really have a plan. This is really equivalent to the product market fit. They're trying to see if people will pay them for the shit that they're creating or the services that they're providing. And this is a great stage, and you have to go through this stage because this should be a lot of testing, understanding, the feedback that you're getting from the market, and then using that to move you on to the next stage. And the next stage ends up being repeatable. This is where companies need to start documenting their processes. They need to hone in on their focus. And in a lot of ways, this is where they're trying to figure out their go-to-market fit. So this is, can they sell the services or the product in a sustainable way? Have they figured that out? And then from there, it goes into scalable. So this is usually where we see companies invest in their infrastructure, building out their team, and really just accelerating. A lot of training is happening, and it's, all of the things that you would expect when you're scaling an organization. And from there, you then move on to sustainable. So at this stage, pretty much every dollar you put in, you should be aware of how much you're going to be getting out. It's predictable results at this point. And then you're slowly moving into the most optimal stage, and that's called, optimal, where you're constantly refining. You have completely integrated organizations. You have data sharing. You have the mature processes, etc. And companies actually go through this model multiple times because it's with every single go-to-market. They have to start at the beginning, and then they go through the entire process, and then they start over. But once you have it done once, you can apply that foundation to every other go-to-market as well.
Okay, so that works across, you're saying, product-led go-to-market, marketing go-to-market, sales go-to-market. Am I missing any? Those are the big three.
Yeah, so it should be a combination of product, or if you're a services business, service. So the services delivery, marketing, and sales. And those three functions need to mature at the same rate across the entire maturity model. So what I've seen is where I've had, let's say, a services org where their service management function as well as their marketing function matured very quickly. They got to scalable, right? But the sales organization didn't, and they stayed in the opportunistic stage. That will actually impact your ability to hit scalable and sustainable revenue growth because your sales team is still acting like they have to chase every deal. They don't have the processes. They don't have a plan, while your other departments do. And so it's not working together in an integrated fashion. So a lot of times when we come in, we actually map each of those departments and say, hey, we need to catch you up so you're all on the same page, and then let's mature together across the organization.
Okay. And how do you benchmark those by stage? Like, so let me take a step back. So how would you classify those categories by revenue? And I know that it's not an exact science, but would you attach a revenue number to it in terms of those different stages?
No, it's I actually wouldn't look at revenue. Sometimes when there's specific revenue amounts that you would expect companies to go through these different stages. So, for example, product market fit usually happens up to about $1 million. And then from $1 million to 10 million, you start seeing the go-to-market fit. So you would expect it to be in that stage 2. And by the time they get to 10 million, you would expect them to move on into the scalable phase. However, most companies don't actually collect enough information to inform their strategy, work on their strategy because they're just focused on execution. So they go into the whole scaling component and then just scale out their inconsistencies. So they end up getting to being a large company in some cases. Like I've worked with clients where, they're $250 million and they were in opportunistic. So it's really looking at the infrastructure of their sales, the infrastructure of their marketing, and also the product management, service management component, and seeing what do they have there as components, and is it really set up for success? Like, do they have processes in place? Do they have the people in place? Do they have the information that they should have at that stage? And that's kind of what we assess on.
Okay. I like that. And so when you're looking at it, I guess, like, what would be the foundational building blocks you would look across those? Let's just keep it to those three categories, product marketing and sales. Once you get to $1 million in revenue, what foundations would you want to see in that $1 million to 10 million range for all of those before they kind of progress to the next stage?
Yeah, at that point, you should really know who are you trying to target and where are you having the most success. So win-loss is a really big deal around this. It's understanding how the market is taking in your service or your product. So a lot of times we ask to see that information, and a lot of companies don't capture it, or they don't capture it. So it's a lot of anecdotal information. But taking that and making sure that you actually document it, and then you do a lot of testing. So in many cases, that's what we end up doing is we collect the data from our clients. We look at where do you think you're seeing a lot of success, and then we build for that for testing purposes. That's when you start doing a lot of activity, and then you're collecting it and then applying it back to the strategy, right?
Right. Yep.
But in a lot of cases, companies don't end up actually leveraging the information that they're collecting, and instead just keep going, right? Like, you have to go back and you have to look at what's been working, what's not working, so you continue to refine.
Okay, so for that kind of Kaizen process, as you look at it, like, what's the frequency you'd recommend if a founder's looking at this and like, hey, we want to continually evaluate our marketing, product, and and sales? What kind of frequency do you look at in terms of doing it? Monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually? I'm sure all of the above, right? But like, what kind of routine or what kind of like structure would you apply to make sure that that's continually adjusted, tested, and then improved upon?
Yeah, so if you don't have a team in place that is doing it, and so product management and service management, those functions should be doing that and collecting that information on a regular basis. That's really their role in an organization. If you don't have someone who is doing that and collecting that information, then I would at least make sure that it's being done on a quarterly basis, and that's like the minimum, because you should be constantly looking at your information and refining. I mean, like when we started Alveo, every conversation that I was having with my clients, I was taking that back and I was documenting it of what was the feedback, what was working, what wasn't, and I was refining off of it. So it was continuous. Now, obviously, this is, the thing that I do, so I know how to do it. But if you are someone who is starting out your business, I would say just looking back for the past quarter and saying, hey, why did this work? Why did it not work? And if you don't know, go back to those people that you talk to and ask them. They're willing to tell you about their buying process. They're willing to tell you and give you feedback of why, it wasn't a fit for them, or what they were looking for that you weren't hitting on. So that way you're collecting that data and then you're applying it moving forward. If you're not doing that and you just keep shooting at it, I mean, like, you're not going to speed up your growth.
Yeah. No, I practice that because same thing for a while, especially early on. I felt like I was just banging my head against the wall, and then I spent a couple hours every Friday doing that, like literally looking at across marketing, product, and sales, just like, hey, what went well, what didn't go so well, right? How can I improve that? If I improved it, and you wouldn't believe that. I mean, I'm sure you would believe it, but most people wouldn't believe that the type of ideas that come to you, that if you were just like running on the treadmill, you just would skate right by you.
Right.
You know,
It
which
it's really and sorry to cut you off, but it's really about
okay.
honing in on your listening skills, right?
Your internal listening skills to yourself.
Yeah, internal listening skills, and your listening skills of when you're out in the market. Like, you stop talking and just listen.
Yeah, I think that's great. So by implementing something like this, what kind of results are you seeing people achieve once they take this and they follow that maturity model that you're talking about? Like what I guess financial impact it has, and then also on like team and processes.
Yeah. So what I have found is in organizations where we applied this, and we applied it across the three different revenue function areas, and I will call anything that touches the customer experience a revenue function area. So, like I said, in many cases, that's product, that's marketing, that's sales. In those organizations, when you do it and they're completely aligned and they follow this process, they can end up doubling their revenue in a single year. It is a significant change. They can end up closing their business and cutting that time in half. And I've seen this at extremely large organizations. So I'm not talking about, like when you have a small company, it's like, to double your revenue, that might not be a huge hurdle. But I'm talking about having a half a billion dollar business and having that level of impact. So the process works. It's actually the reason why we help out companies with it, because it does accelerate their time to get to sustainable and scalable revenue.
Yeah, those are some amazing results, and I could totally see that because a lot of times folks are too busy, just like I said, in the business instead of working on the business. So it's a good routine, a great routine. So let's shift gears a little bit. What would you say for you personally? What's your absolute favorite tool that you couldn't live without?
That's a hard question.
It could be a couple, MJ. It doesn't have to be one, but like with running your business, and you can even apply it to, one of the top 2 or 3 critical tools that you recommend customers use, right? Either way.
The reason why that's so difficult is it depends on what your business is trying to achieve. So I've been in situations where I've had to build out tech stacks. And, especially now when there's I think the last count was, over 8,000 different tools and platforms and everything.
8,000 marketing tools.
Yeah.
I think sales is not as heavy. I think there's 500 or 1,000 or something like that for sales.
Yeah. In marketing, it's insane. And so because of that, you get, this shiny object syndrome, and it's like, oh, we need this, and we need this, and we need this. And I've always cautioned my clients and the companies I've worked for about investing in tools that they can't fully integrate and to optimize. If you can't leverage that tool, then it's a waste of your time and your money. And so even in my business, I'm a stickler about this. I will find a very awesome tool, and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna, I get my, shiny object syndrome myself, and I'm like, we need to implement this because it's gonna be awesome. And then I get billed for it for 4 months where I haven't even touched it because I just don't have the time. Right? And so then
I'm guilty.
Yeah. So then I knock it out. I will admit, for example, I don't have marketing automation software. I'm a marketer, and I have not invested in it. And I'm probably not going to for quite a while because my business is not there. I'm not going to be sending out regular marketing emails, and I don't have the capacity for it. So, and I wouldn't tell a company to invest in that if they're not ready for it and they don't have the resources to do it. Now, for a CRM, that was number one. I had to do it. And I used HubSpot because, one, I love HubSpot. And I've been an evangelist for them for, almost a decade at this point. And but it's the same thing. I didn't buy the most expensive thing. I bought the lowest, and I'm building up to the next stage, and that's kind of my growth. So that's my opinion on technology, and usually it's about what are you trying to achieve, and then what tools are going to let you do that, and then what's the most pragmatic way to build up your tech stack, right? But I have been telling everyone about vocal video. So if you haven't heard about that, it's really cool. And I probably have implemented in ways that it's not meant to be implemented, but I don't care. I thought it is awesome. So have you heard of it?
I think you mentioned it to me one time, but yeah, share the details on it.
Yeah, so
another shiny object for everybody listening to go after. I'm just kidding with you. Go ahead.
So,
tell us about it.
So vocal video is a platform where you can collect testimonials and videos from clients or prospects or whatnot. And it's really easy because you set up 5 questions, you send it off to someone, and then they can record themselves either on their computer or on their phone. And then once they do it, you go in, it automatically creates a testimonial video. You can edit it for 10 minutes, and then it turns into a case study, right? And think about how much money people spend to make a case study video, right? Like I used to spend at least $10,000, sometimes $20,000 on a case study video. And here I have a tool where I can capture this information without having to fly anywhere, without all the production costs, all of that. And now I have this content. And I've actually started to use it as part of my sales process. So in case I'm talking to an executive who is very short on time, I can't get a meeting with them, I send them that link and be like, hey, just answer these few questions so we can move on to the next stage of our sales process. And I've had clients who have used it because it's so much easier for them to just record their response and then send it off to me. And so I love that tool. I think everyone should invest in that one. I do not get a commission. But that's why I would like to highlight.
That's great. I love the creativity with that. How about if we're changing gears again, these are just some fast fire questions. So who would you say is a founder that you look up to or think is doing an amazing job right now?
I was not prepared for such hard questions. Let's see, a founder.
It could be a CEO as well, maybe a business leader, whatever. Someone you're like, hey, that person's doing an amazing job. Like for example, me, someone who I think is doing an amazing job is Russell Brunson, right? He bootstrapped to $1 billion valuation, and he totally did a marketing go to market, more B2C motion, and he just has a lot of different ways in which he created a cult following. So that's one of the people that I think is doing an amazing job. So does that spark any ideas for you, or if not, we can move on?
Yeah. So I suck at names. So it's who's a great founder? I have a hard time answering it because I have a hard time thinking of names. I would say, like I said, for example, with what HubSpot does, I think those founders were brilliant. I love how they grew the organization. I love how they were listening to what was going on in the market, and just the way that it's the same thing. They slowly grew their company and the services and the product lines that they were offering instead of trying to do everything all at once, which a lot of other companies try to do. But if you ask me to name them, no, because I suck at names. So I own that.
That's good, because that's somebody actually I haven't. I think it's My First Million is a podcast. They actually interviewed, I think, the founder of HubSpot. So that'd be kind of cool to check out. And then there's a guy named David Skok, Skok. He sits on the board for HubSpot. He's got a lot of great content. So anyways, just food for thought. How about books? Like, what's your favorite book that you've read over the last few years?
Well, there's a specific one, and I know several people have heard of this book, so I don't think I'm repeating anything. But The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I love that book. I've given that to people to read. And the reason why that book for me was really important is that years ago, I would say that I was a workaholic. And it had a negative impact on my life and on my marriage at the time. And that book helped me reframe a lot about my life and about what matters to me. And that's why I promote it to anyone, about making sure that you're going things after the right reasons instead of, because you think you're expected to, or people have this expectation of you or whatnot. And I know I was working so hard for the wrong reasons. So now it's reframed my thinking and my priorities, and I'm thankful for that. Another book that I'm really big on as well, and I would actually buy this for anyone who works for me. It's The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And
Never heard of that one.
You haven't heard of that one?
No, I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I promote that across all of my teams because you do run into dysfunction, and especially as you get larger and larger in size. And I've been in situations where we've gone from, having 2 people all the way to 30 people on a team within a year. And when that happens, and there's so much change and everything, it's going to happen, and you just don't have time for it in the business. But The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team really talks about how to build trust in your organization, how to, have healthy and constructive debate, how to make sure that you guys are all aligned and holding each other accountable, moving forward towards a single goal. It's a fantastic book. I make everyone read it because most of the time when I have to deal with, inner office bullshit, I just ask them, I'm like, did you talk to the person? And they're like, well, no, I don't want to. And it's like, well, just go talk to the person and have a conversation and ask them if everything's okay. Don't assume, that they're being mean to you or they have an agenda or something. Assume innocence, show your own vulnerabilities, create that connection, and from there you can develop that trust. Know that when you are having a debate, it's okay if you guys don't agree, but sometimes people want to be heard. So are you letting them do that? So it helps breed a really great culture and a really great team environment. And so I recommend that for any leader is to, 1, read the book, 2, give it to all of your teammates.
Excellent. Well, I've never heard of that book before, but I could see massive benefits, especially if you're building out a team. So, All right. So we're just about up on time. Where can people find you, MJ? Where can they learn more about you and Alveo?
Yeah, so they can check out alveostrategy.com. Alveo is ALVEO strategy. And if you're curious about why it's Alveo, Alveo is actually Latin for channel, and that's our sweet spot. So we're fully all in on that space. But yeah, check that out, or find me on LinkedIn. It's MJ Patent, patent like the office, or the shoes, I guess. You can find me on LinkedIn and connect there. Happy to make those connections.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being on the show. We'll put that in the show notes as well so people can connect and reach out. But it was a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to seeing everyone on the next episode.
Thank you.